Be not afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent. Hello there, it's Skye back for another solo video. Today we are looking at how science reveals God, scientific evidence for God. This would be fascinating because this is part of what I say I would need to see is scientific evidence. So let's see what you've got and if it will return me to the fold. Ooh. Music, visual effects, and narration produced by the AOC Network. Other copyright media either licensed or referenced on grounds of fair use. In other words, I'm going to get my shit claimed again because you use someone else's music. Not seeing much science yet. Nice room. Why are you looking all depressed, dude? You're in a gorgeous house. Oh, Mama died and it was her house, I'm guessing. What am I watching? I'm here for science.
Alright, buddy, if you can't cry, just scrunch up your eyes really hard. And that's good, that'll be good enough.
There are many out there who want to believe in God. Some write to us saying how they want evidence, something to just strengthen their faith.
That at one point was me as I was beginning to realize that things didn't line up. First, I realized how much I had been lied to about. Then I realized nothing that was being said in the Christian community made sense, and it was just a cult. And then I realized that nothing in the Bible made sense and contradicted itself. I looked for every bit of evidence I could, so you're talking my language, and I am eager to hear what you feel is evidence.
Maybe they recently lost someone close to them, and they just want to believe that they will see that person again. Or maybe they just don't want to lose hope that there is more beyond this life of difficulty. And for many, that hope fades away because they struggle with unanswered questions, religious frustrations, or maybe just the idea of God seems so far-fetched, which is understandable. I mean, ever since we were kids, many of us were bombarded with images of God being this giant who sits on a cloud.
This is only a 10-minute video. You're 2 minutes in, and everything so far has been a plea to emotion. You're supposed to be dropping the scientific evidence for God. Considering what a monumental task that is, why is a fifth of your video just dedicated to pulling at my heartstrings?
With sandals, right? You've seen it. And he has the little cute angels floating around him with harps. Basically, for most of our lives, we've been fed unrealistic depictions of God. And so, there's no wonder why, as you get older, when you start to question the depictions, the next thing you start to question is God himself. And so what has been helpful in my journey was being willing to study what the Bible actually says about God.
Have you? Because the number one thing that finally told me I wasn't a Christian was studying what the Bible says about God. And the fact that while I don't make affirmative claims in most instances that a God cannot exist, I do make affirmative claims that the God of the Bible, that Yahweh, cannot exist.
And when you do, you find that the concept of God is not as far-fetched as the world may have you to believe.
Citation needed.
In fact, the concept of God becomes relatable. You see, there are things that most people believe and that even the scientific community accepts that are very similar to how the Bible describes God.
I really wish that I used Facecam for once so you could see the absolutely incredulous look that I have right now. You said science reveals God. You said scientific evidence for God. You didn't say loose correlations. Ugh. I swear, if this comes down to just a definition fight, I wasn't ready for much, but even then, I'm feeling let down already. And again, a third of your video has been spent on this.
Can you guess what they are? Okay, here's an easy one.
Can I guess what they are? The Big Bang is the only one I can think of. A misunderstanding of the Big Bang would allow for that concept. Other than that, yeah, that's all I got. All right, lay it on me.
Science teaches that the universe basically is never ending, going on, and that even at its beginning, it really still existed, but just in a different form. Basically, science teaches that the universe is everlasting. Well, when you read the Bible, it says God is everlasting.
Are you genuinely trying to infer that the universe is God? Bro, this is not scientific evidence. This is two words were the same. You know what else is everlasting? Cthulhu, the old one. You know what else is everlasting? My eternal fucking pain. Oh my God. Yes. Yes, the universe is everlasting. And God is everlasting. And Cthulhu is everlasting. And Slender Man is everlasting. And energy itself is everlasting. Just because two things are claimed to be everlasting does not make them the same thing. Or equivalent. Or right.
And that he was in the beginning and without end. And in the book of Acts, when the Apostle Paul was trying to describe God to the people in Athens, notice what he says. He said, "For in him we live and move and have our being." He used language that many today would ascribe to the universe, but he was referring to God.
You have a problem here on three fronts. Front number one is the one I already addressed. The concept that because we discuss something in a similar way does not mean it is an identical thing. Problem number two, what you are presenting is not a scientific conundrum, it is a wordplay conundrum, and you just stepped onto my strongest territory, bitch. For in him we live does not mean, yes, this certainly is a nice spleen to live next to, but I was thinking, Martha, that tomorrow we move up to the gallbladder. No, we don't live inside of him. It means because of him, through him. It's old-timey language, but that's what it means. Third, you are taking this out of context, and you might say, oh, how could it be out of context? He just quoted it verbatim. Because, notice the quotation marks on either side. For in him we live and move and have our being. Those quotation marks are not there because of him quoting the Bible. They're there in all translations because the speaker, the author, is quoting Epimenides. Specifically, it is a quotation from Epimenides' invocation to Zeus that reads, "They fashioned a tomb for you, holy and high one. Cretians, always liars, evil beasts, idle bellies. But you are not dead. You live and abide forever, for in you we live and move and have our being." So this is literally Paul saying to them, hey, you guys are already familiar with this piece of writing. Look, it works like this concept that you're already familiar with. Or if we're to go with what you're saying, Zeus is God, and we all live inside of Zeus. I hope I'm nowhere near the testicles. And then you follow it up to say, he used language many would ascribe to the universe, but he's not talking. He is not talking about God using that language. He is quoting someone else talking about Zeus with that language. By your own argument, the universe is Zeus.
And also interesting, when the Bible describes the universe, it says that it was created to reflect God's glory.
Bit of double play there. I noticed you didn't actually read it. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. First off, it's a psalm. It's literally poetic license. Then, the heavens and the skies are the same thing. He's repeating himself. So not the universe, because they didn't think a universe existed. And day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. The heavens and the skies, they talk and they display knowledge. Reminder, this is a time period when they believed you could look at the sky and tell the future. Remember, God put the lights in the heavens for signs and seasons.
Almost as if he created it to be a visible reflection of his invisible nature.
You can't correlate the two. Just because you use skies and then you get on a website and one version of the definition that is used across the whole Bible can be considered to be the visible universe, and then you pointed to another spot in the Bible that said invisible.
So yeah, it's interesting. And we have a video on that that explores this further, so definitely check that out.
That's all you have to say? That's not just evidence, it's not even a definition fight. It's not even anything. That is the weakest argument I've ever heard.
But what is something else that people and scientists easily accept that is similar to how the Bible describes God? Well, it's interesting what many believe about energy. You see, science teaches about the law of conservation.
I swear to fuck, if you bring up the second law of thermodynamics, I'm gonna bitch slap you so hard your mama won't recognize you.
Which is the idea that energy cannot be created and that it cannot be destroyed. It can only change forms. So according to science, energy fills the entire universe, and all of the energy within the universe existed even before the universe became what it is now.
No. You are correct, somewhat, that energy fills the universe, and you are kind of correct that the energy has always existed. However, that doesn't mean that the energy has always existed. It is possible, as part of a quantum equation, that energy can effectively be created from nothing. Now, I don't fully understand this because I am not a quantum scientist. However, as best as I can explain it, temporarily, something can cause energy to burst into existence, and that energy must be taken back out of existence later. That energy is never really considered to have existed.
Because that energy has always been there, just in a different form. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the Bible says that God fills the universe, and that he cannot be what? Created or destroyed. He is the Alpha and the Omega. And it gets deeper than that.
Oh, it better. It better get deeper than that, because once again, so far all you've established is that he possesses properties that supposedly every single deity possesses according to their book. All that the verse you referenced expresses is that he's omniscient, which he's also not.
Because unlike popular culture, The Bible does not describe God as an old giant living on a cloud. No, the Bible says that God is spirit. And in the Hebrew and in the Greek, the word spirit means breath, wind. And according to science, you know what wind is?
A potential energy source. Wind itself does not cause fucking energy. Oh my god. Wind is created via the pushing of atmosphere due to thermal differences. Wind itself is not energy. Wind can generate energy. You see the big turbines that you have pushing? When wind moves them, it moves a coil. And that's what produces electricity.
A form of solar energy. And so it's fascinating.
Is it? Is it? The only fascinating thing here is how disingenuous or absolutely caught in your own little web you are.
The Bible says the universe was created to display God's glory. Science says that the energy that made the universe has always existed, just in a different form. And the Bible says that God is spirit or wind, which is a form of solar energy.
Do you misunderstand what a solar energy is? It is energy produced by the heat of the sun, meaning it's limited, meaning it's not permanent.
What's the point here? Are you trying to say that the universe or energy is God? No, that's not the point we're making.
That's the closest you came to making a point. Yes, that is what you're attempting to say.
The point here is that if we can so easily believe what science says about things like the universe and energy, it should not be so far-fetched and difficult to believe what the Bible says about God.
No. We believe and acknowledge the things that science says about the universe and energy because they are demonstrable, they are testable, they are repeatable, they are observable. Now, we may not be able to directly observe some of those things. We may be forced to use models. However, when we look at your particular version of God, the same does not apply. We cannot test, we cannot observe, we cannot do anything. And when we attempt to, we get less consistent results than anything science would ever accept. And when we look at this book that you're telling us tells us all these things, it also tells us innately contradicting things. Science does not simultaneously tell us that a force is all-powerful and never-ending, and also is incapable of doing something.
Because basically, what the Bible is simply saying is that the spirit that birthed everything into existence has sentience. It's intelligent, and there is a purpose behind it all.
Funny you should show bananas in that purpose. Because bananas are purpose-built. They didn't look like that until we made them look like that. And then it's even funnier you're showing the human body something that was so clearly not purpose-built and is massively non-functional and flawed. And if it was purpose-built by a creator, woo, any design student would flunk out of their preliminary classes for handing in something as woefully misdesigned as the human body. And this omniscient creator that you're trying to push is supposed to have wonderfully made it?
You know, it's interesting. There are three things that the Bible says God is. It says God is spirit, which is translated as wind.
If spirit automatically means wind, then let's read the full verse, John 4:24, in its context that you've cut off. God is wind. That's what you keep reading. God is wind. But there's a comma and a whole rest of the verse there. So let's read it out with your corrected translation. God is wind, and those who worship him must worship in wind and truth. Yeah, I'm leaving this silence in because I want you to take in how stupid you sound and hear it back to yourself and give you a chance to try to argue it out in your own head why what I just did isn't legitimate. It's the same verse. It is 9 words later in the same verse. You want to tell me spirit means wind automatically? Not spirit? Like goose spirit? No, it means wind. We must worship him in wind. Don't close the windows on your church. You gotta worship God in the wind. And if it's a lazy, hazy summer day with no wind, don't waste your time worshiping. You gotta worship in wind. Get some fans going.
It says God is light.
1 John 1:5. Once again, let's read the full context since they can't be bothered to. Here is the message we have heard from Christ and now announce to you. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Light referring to God's truth and goodness. Darkness referring to falsehood and evil. Or are you suggesting that God is literally light, that he has no darkness? So every time the sun goes away and it's a new moon, God's not there. If I make a shut-in room with no light sources and I close somebody in that room, have I just shut them off from God? God can no longer reach them?
And it says God is love.
That's one of the most difficult ones, because when the Bible then breaks down what love is, God absolutely fulfills none of those aspects.
You know what wind, light, and love have in common?
Nothing.
We all need them.
No, we don't.
And even though we can't touch them, we can still feel them.
You have some fascinating crack there, sir. Other things that I can't touch but still feel are hatred, misery, depression. I feel that one a lot. You picked nice things and you said, we can't live without them. But how about other things that we hypothetically can't live without that we can't touch? Disappointment, failure, sadness. How about empathy? You know, the thing God very, very clearly doesn't have or condone as he instructs people to keep slaves and to slaughter women and children and the elderly simply because he decided he wanted someone living somewhere that he, in his infinite wisdom, allowed other people to populate for millennia. And once again, one of these things is not like the others. I can measure light. I can measure the wind. And actually, to a certain degree, because all love is a series of chemicals, we can, to a certain degree, measure love. Now I'm going to need you to explain the measurement for God. That's what I need on my videos. A massive sign that pops up that says massive erection. Some nice little platitudes. Somehow, in, let's be real here, 6 minutes of content, because your first 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes and 40 seconds, that was just setting up an emotional hook. And your last 30 seconds is just your outro. So you had 6 minutes of actual content, and within 6 minutes you managed to take a verse out of context. You managed to suggest that Zeus is the actual deity that the Bible says is true, or that perhaps God and Zeus are, and that was about it. That was about it. Other than that, you managed to play telephone. I found a word, and the word is used in another place. And that means 9/11 was done by the Nazi Jews that lived on the moon. Yeah. Think about that. Isn't it interesting? Fascinating, even. I expected bad science. I came into this, Best case scenario, something in here gives me something to actually think about. Worst case scenario, I get to laugh at some bad science. And instead you handed me second grade wordplay. Well, that's about all that I can handle for today, so have a great evening, everyone. And I will see you next time. Like, subscribe, share it around. Make my misery worth something. Farewell.